Hi, my name is Matthew K. Hafey. I'm in the metal band Trivium. I was asked by my dear friend Mano to talk a little bit about how I feel about gaming and music and how I feel they're very culturally important, how the worlds are symbiotic.
Like Wacken, gaming connects people.
Taking into consideration that music is one of the fundamental parts of today's game design. More people are listening to radio music in GTA or in game genre than do listen to classical radio.
You know, this is what music does. It makes you feel involved to a degree that's totally irrational. And this is why it combines so well with gaming, because it massively increases your perception that you're actually in control, that you're really doing something.
There has been this collaboration, metal music and festival meets esport. But I would also love to see a Wacken team in different games out of the Wacken community, and I might put all the metal battle winners into GTA radio and give them audience.
What's happening when you're listening to angry music after, for example, an anger induction?
That means if you're listening to metal music and you're angry, that's the best time to get a tattoo.
Metalheads are good people. We are at the early stage of virtual concerts as well. I know not.
Okay, we have next to me Mahsha Shamrizi.
Shamrizi? You are IFA expert and researcher on gaming and international relations, metalhead and Wacken ambassador, co-founder GameLab.Berlin of Humboldt University, and co-initiator of Metality and Rotarian Metalhead Fellowship. Wow, that's a title.
That's way too much titles, but I'm very much looking forward to this discussion. My very first and most probably last gig on a Wacken stage. Yay.
You never know, maybe there's a career.
Who knows, who knows, who knows.
And we have Professor Dr. Thomas Fritz, Professor for Empirical Music Research at the Max Planck Institute for Human, Cognitive and Brain Sciences. Very intellectual morning round we have here. Unfortunately, Matt Heavey from Trivium can't be here, but we have a little message from him that he recorded for us, and we'd love to let you hear it now.
Hi, my name is Matthew K. Hafey. I'm in the metal band Trivium. I was asked by my dear friend Mano to talk a little bit about how I feel about gaming and music and how I feel they're very culturally important, how the worlds are symbiotic, and my thoughts, my beliefs and everything. I first got into gaming when I was about 4.5, maybe 5 years old. My dad is a Marine, so he was stationed elsewhere, and my mom was a Japanese immigrant teaching me how to basically, be a kid, grow up and all that stuff. And the first thing that was a big part of the Japanese culture was getting into video games, so it was through Mario, the first one. As I grew up and started going into gaming, I started finding that there was a big following of it all and that people loved it very much, and there was a lot of interesting people, almost like underdogs. Like I felt like the people that were thinking a little bit differently about life, who wanted a different story, wanted a different thing, wanted a different outcome, were going into gaming. And I've always found that I've met some of my favorite friends and best friends through playing games together, especially back then it would have been split screen console. Now flash forward, at the same time, 11 or so, I'm getting into metal. I start seeing the same thing. I want something different out of music. I want to find out what else there is. And so metal, as you already know, is a huge part of the cultural infrastructure of who I am and who these great communities around the world were able to find through metal. Wacken OpenAir is the perfect description, is the symbol of what it means. All these people from all around the planet flying in to the greatest metal festival in the world to have this community. Well, gaming is the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the underdogs wanting a different story, wanting a different thing out of life, who start gravitating and finding these different things. So I find it's really important to have community in those and to instill positive community and to instill a sense of bringing people together. Just as the band has always done, I like to do the exact same thing with gaming. And so we've had incredible gaming communities who've been able to meet and foster, and I believe it's the same thing with music. So it is so important that we are able to address that, cultivate that, and not shun it. And it's very important to bring those things together, bring the communities of gaming together, the communities of metal together, and hopefully bring them together as well at a place like Wacken.
Okay, so Matt mentioned that metal and gaming are very related, closely related, and you did a study. Maybe you can tell us a bit about your opinion why metal music and gaming are related. And here we have our first promo.
Yes, of course. Greetings to the nice folks of the IFA, the Institut für Auslandsbeziehungen, because they are helping us make this happen. I thought a nice promo part should be in order.
Always good to plug some stuff.
No, thanks guys for coming. Thanks Sarah for taking care of us and moderating. And first of all, even though I'm pretty sure it doesn't reach them directly, our heartfelt greetings to Matt and whole of Trivium, because as we learned this morning, there has been a medical issue with
I don't
one
know
of
if
the
this
team
was
members.
to go public, but okay.
No, but that's why I'm not giving details. But they have a medical issue, so Matt can't be here. But they will be here, and all is good, but not right now. So it's good for them to share Matt's thoughts on this, because I think he's a legend in both worlds.
Absolutely.
And he's a prototype of a broader phenomenon, which I believe is part of the answer to your question. Because going into cultural theory, you will always find the idea that specific cultural techniques bring together people and they enjoy it and thus form community. And we see that in metal, this in a similar way as Matt said, like in gaming. Now, the most interesting parts, I believe, is where these two worlds meet and fascinatingly do not be antagonistic to each other, but they support each other. I mean, I was with Matt last year at the Gamescom, and the Gamescom had a huge metal concert, which was pretty cool. Arch Enemy was there as well, so it was not only about Trivium. And the community aspect is one part of it, taking into consideration that music, and that's something Tom, I believe, can say a lot about, is one of the fundamental parts of today's game design. Is a second pillar as an answer to that question. I know that not everyone in the metal community is too happy about these things, but more people are listening to radio music in GTA or in game genre than do listen to classical radio. There are concerts in Fortnite. And so on. And if you take all these things into consideration, there is a huge potential to bring these worlds together.
There has been a lot of collaborations as well of like metal bands integrating their songs into games. So it has a lot of potential for artists as well, even say Twitch, where you can build up your own community. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, Matt could be much better because he made it possible to have an article about him in the New York Times, which was quite cool during the pandemic. I don't know if at the New York Times anybody knew about Trivium before that time, but the story was about him getting a second revenue stream, so to say, to be able to survive as an artist. Of course, it's less difficult for him to survive than for many others. But we see streaming as a way how, which is a cultural technique that originated in gaming, how that's impacting other cultural industries like music as well. If you look at the music industry and you look at centralized business models like Spotify, Apple Music, and so on, where there's not much of the revenues left for the real artists, and you compare that to Twitch, and how the gaming community grew up by accepting that there are talents and that talents need to be respected and be paid, then
absolutely
working as an artist on Twitch is much closer to the original idea of how music communities support music artists, which is why I believe we will see more of that.
It's a much closer relationship as well.
It's very interactive. You can directly react, and then also if you bring in the cultural institutions in the right way, it helps with community building as well. Take one example that is pretty famous in our little world, but it has nothing to do with music in the first step. The Serpentine Gallery. I don't know who of you guys is aware of that. It's a very traditional, highly respected art gallery in London that joined forces with Fortnite. Fortnite is one of those games that we usually think of as so-called proto-metaverse games, so games that offer more than just gaming, so to say. And they made last year a hybrid exhibition curated by Hans-Ulrich Obrist, who is a very conservative art gallery director. But even he had to acknowledge that he was able, by building a hybrid art exhibition where, in collaboration with the artist, you saw the exact same objects in the Serpentine Gallery in London or in a Fortnite version of that building. He was able to reach out to many more people, include many more communities which would not have been able to travel and to go there physically, and take into consideration, final footnote maybe, what Thomas Jensen said yesterday about all our fellow metalheads who can't be here today and how we want to include them. And now have a look at Wacken worldwide and compare that to what, and I'm trying to be very diplomatic here, what would have been possible. Would you have made a Wacken worldwide version built on what gaming allows for inclusion and, as you said, interactivity? Because I don't believe Wacken worldwide was where it could have been.
You mean the virtual version that took place in the pandemic? Yeah. But they had very good viewing numbers, didn't
Absolutely, and we had a very high amount of people joining our Full Metal gaming tent, and still there were critics saying that might be the case because it was the only tent on the area that was cooled during a hot Wacken. I don't know if you guys remember hot Wackens, they used to exist.
Long time ago.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that these approaches weren't cool. What I'm saying is
there's more potential.
There's more potential. The gaming community has a fascinating how to put that? It has a fascinating way of looking at these things, because not only is gaming at the forefront of technological innovations like VR, augmented reality, cloud, whatever, but the community at the same time, or large parts of it, are highly critical of that. So you get a look into how technology can work, but you also get a criticism which helps you to understand, is this an inclusive way of using this technology? Is this a good way of being fair to the artist and allowing for high quality art? So that and something I believe Matt also mentioned, even if it wasn't directly in his video, both communities have the highest respect for skill, right? If you look at the face of a 12, 13-year-old person watching Twitch, seeing a gamer being highly competitive, it's the same spirit in their minds than if they look at someone who's a guitarist on stage and acknowledge the level of skill. So these worlds are not that far away from each other, and they can learn from each other. I put all the metal battle winners into GTA radio and give them audience. That's
good
the
idea.
potentials, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, like Wacken, gaming connects people. And many years ago, I'm half Pakistani and I went to Pakistan. And I remember talking to some students. And it was really interesting because they said, people think that we are not sort of realizing what's happening in the world, but we are gamers. So we can, over gaming, connect with people worldwide and see how they think of Pakistan and, exchange our opinions, which is also an aspect in your survey, isn't it? That you sort of, what is the potential and what are the risks of all these gamers sort of, getting information.
And it's true, there are fascinating projects also, even the conservative foreign relation, cultural relation world accept this now. Like if you want to look it up, the Uncensored Library, which is in Minecraft, and who of you guys is familiar with Minecraft, is still the most played game of our time, and there Reporters Without Borders, an NGO, built a library where you can read in-game, which is technically much more difficult to censor than social media. You can read newspapers, you can read forbidden books in China, in Iran, in Russia, and so on. There are all these potentials looking from this perspective. Again, on the other hand, we are at the early stage of virtual concerts as well. I know not everybody's a fan of that, but there has been a survey in Germany a few years ago that we discussed in Wacken quite a lot, saying that up to 20 million% of Germans would be open for virtual concerts. Now the question is, how do you organize that, right? How do you make it feel right? Is there does it have to be a virtual concert and no more real concerts, so to say, in the mud? Which I don't believe is where the journey should head to. But can we bring in young bands and give them a slot, for example, and also fulfill our responsibility as a country like Germany that could allow for this infrastructure in the digital world? I think these are the debates we talk about when we talk about potentials.
I think that there have been sort of attempts. For instance, a couple of years ago, Magenta Music did the 360 VR, where you could watch Wacken over the glasses. But the problem is that not enough people have, for instance, the glasses, you know, Oculus or whatever, to watch the concerts. But it was actually really cool because they had cameras like on the stage, so you could stand next to the drummer and watch him drumming, which you cannot do if you're at Wacken. Obviously, it's nice to be live there, but you can't get as close.
On the other hand, one should keep in mind, that's one point that I learn every semester new from my students, that the German approach that we sometimes have, in American English there's a saying that if you digitalize a shitty process, you end up having a shitty digital process. So the potential, the chances and the risks of digitalization of all kind, including gaming, is not to take something that's analog and try to make it virtual, right? The Fortnite concerts, nobody would have had any doubt about this not being a real concert, so to say. Still, hundreds of millions of people went there and watched it. In Japan, which in some ways, Matt could have talked about this now, is a premium place on earth if you want to look at utopian but also dystopian impact of technology on society. That's the holy ground for many gamers, so to say. They have virtual bands with no human musician behind it at all. It's holograms. Now you do not need to like that, right? I remember the community's feedback when there was Dio as a hologram
I just
on
thought of
stage.
Dio too, yeah.
That's not peak Wacken, I agree. But there is potential for some. And on the other hand, maybe final footnote on this, something we need to get better at, there I see the gaming community and the Wacken community at the forefront, is on the other hand, protecting what is happening there. Like we have all these artist at risk programs. Now, if you're a game designer in Pakistan and you're or in Iran or wherever, and you develop a certain type of game which has a certain type of message,
like a narrative that is influencing people.
Like a narrative that's influencing people, and maybe is seen critical by the bureaucracy and the government. Right now, I wouldn't be too sure if all the processes that are out there to support artists at risk would be there to help you. Like if you apply for the Martin Roth Initiative, for example, which is the federal government's program to support artists all around the world, you can write them, you can apply, you can say, I'm a musician somewhere and for political reasons I need to get out, for human rights issues I need to get out. That works quite well. Right? No, there's always room for improvement. It works quite well. If you're a game designer in Pakistan or Iran, I'm not too sure if you write them an email and say, look, I'm a game artist, I'm under attack because of my games, you need to help me, if that would work. Now, if you're Matt Heafy, you have understood that this is both art, right? That's why he's flourishing at both of it. But we need to take that knowledge into the broader community and to accept it as an art form with all the responsibility that comes with it.
Tom,
Hey
you've
there.
been very quiet.
Yeah, you know, Manu, he can talk for ages, and it's always interesting enough. So I don't need to introduce interrupt there. But I thought maybe because it's about music and maybe some aspect about the functionality of music and gaming, some thoughts that I have and that we have. So when I say we, I mean the Music Evoked Brain Plasticity Group. We are here also at the Wacken Music Festivals conducting an experiment. So if you folks are interested in this, we're in this Wacken, heavy metal army.
The foundations, let me put it more
Wacken
brutal than
Foundation,
he
yeah.
does. If you believe you're able to bear pain more than your fellow metalheads, go to his fascinating science project and proof case if you're a hard metalhead or not.
Yeah, it's not a competition though, so it's about scientific accuracy there. So, but we're interested in endorphin and metal, so we even see several medical potential for especially angry music for helping not to develop chronic pain. But if you're interested in that kind of stuff and we look at endorphin levels during the concert, please come and visit us there.
Can you tell us a bit what you've been experiencing or what it's about?
Yeah, so we're investigating effects of music and music making, but interestingly, and that's very relevant also to the gaming. So I want to tell you about one very recent experiment that we've been doing, and that we've been trying to wrap our minds around. And at the beginning it was so difficult because we were not understanding what's actually going on. So we have this experiment where we have people either do music, through a slider, and they can actively control the music with only the slider, or they cannot. And we put electrodes, also EEG electrodes, and so we have these two conditions, one where they can do music, and another where they're just listening to music. But we still, in both conditions, we ask them the question, how much did you feel in control of the music? But they were only in control of the music in the one condition where they could use the slider. But it was a bit of an ambivalent situation, where you could have thought, okay, I have these electrodes on my head, and maybe I am actually controlling the music myself now. And we actually do have this setup where people can control the music with their thoughts, but we didn't use it there at all. But still, people were rating very high that they were controlling the music while they were not.
Wow.
And I think, this is something where we were trying to, okay, let's optimize the questionnaire. Or, maybe we need to include different questions and whatnot. And, and now I realize this is what music does. It makes you feel involved to a degree that's totally irrational. And this is why it combines so well with gaming, because it massively increases your perception that you're actually in control, that you're really doing something. I just wanted to add this because I thought, maybe putting a little bit of a functionality of what does music and how does it mix with gaming could be interesting to also reach new grounds. And I know that talking with Manu, we always reach new grounds. So thank you very much for inviting me today, Manu.
And in your survey, Manu, you talked about also the dangers. I mean, I was reading at the moment how many 3 billion active video gamers worldwide. So what do you think are the risks? Because we just talked about, obviously you can use gaming if you're, the Chinese government to use your political agenda and your narrative. So can we talk a bit about, is there a possibility of controlling that, or what would you say? Because I know you have the extended gaming literacy in the survey as part of a possibility of controlling.
Yeah, sure. Of course, you can't do an event in Germany without talking the risks. But there are real risks out there. At first, I want to still deconstruct this 3 billion as a number. That's a number that's always floating in the debate. And it seems to be true. It's a number by Statista, so there's real evidence behind it. But you only get there if you count everyone. If you say a gamer starts with Candy Crush and it ends with...
Don't diss Candy
No,
Crush.
it's very objective, and it ends with, you know, someone who played 200 hours of Elden Ring. If that's your definition of gaming, then you get up to 3 billion. That's not neither scientifically nor policy-wise. That's a helpful definition, right? I mean, in this round, we do not need to debate about subgenre as a phenomenon, right? If you go out there and say, of course, we all love to say we are millions of metalheads, and then you have the most intense debates about is band A metal or not? Is it still pop rock metal or is it already, I don't know, metalcore or whatever? So that just should give you a feeling. The 3 billion is real, but it's just like when people tell you they know what the metaverse is, it's usually someone's interest to sell you something behind it, because we are not at the debate yet to know all these things in detail. Now the risk is, if you have the most broadly used culture and medium of our time, which is gaming, right? More people game or watch games than they listen to music, go to theater, watch Netflix, watch global sport competitions combined, full stop. And this is a cultural technique which colleagues of Tom, and I don't know where Lydia is back there, from psychological research, tell us that this cultural technique is is an empathy machine, right? Because games react on your interactions, as you said. No other medium that you listen to can do that, except of course live, right? I mean, Trivium can react to you, but if you listen to a Trivium album, it's always going to be the same. Everybody's reception is different, of course, but Harry Potter...
That's a constant.
Harry Potter as a linear narrative, Harry Potter Legacy as a game is not. To put it maybe this way. Now this leads to what psychology tells us is an empathy machine. So I empathize a lot with the view of a protagonist in a game of which I spent 120 hours with, trying to save his or her world. Now if that's protagonist, and that's the final point of this line of argumentation, if this protagonist view is, let's say, The Division 2, which is a game where you, don't want to spoil anyone, but where you need to fight the effects of a pandemic, and during the game you realize that parts of the federal government in the US use that pandemic to strive you from your basic rights as citizens. So you need to go to Washington to stop the traitors from taking away the rights, and that game comes out a few months before what happened January 6th in the US, in the Capitol, and you know that dozens of millions of people played that game and empathize, knowingly or not, with the perspective of that protagonist, then there is a real risk for someone misusing that. And we see this misusing. We see Chinese companies like Tencent buying stakes in European and US game developer firms, and then suddenly, if you scream "Free Hong Kong" online, you're banned for whatever reason for the next year. Now, banning a gamer for a year, I just want to make that understandable, would be similar to tell a musician not to go on stage on the most relevant places for a year. That's technically canceling and the ban. We are not there yet in our cultural community, so to say, and culture policy community, to react the same way. If someone is excluded from Buchmesse Leipzig, right? We have a big discussion in the feuilleton. Everybody is like, no, that's not okay. China should not tell us, or Russia should not tell us whose voices should be heard or not. When that happens in gaming, it takes us way too long to realize these risks. And that's just one example. But what we call in foreign policy the competition of narratives. In German, it's Wettbewerb der Narrative. So every partner or competitor is out there telling his or her narratives on, for example, how to fight global change. Should that be fought on an authoritarian way or in a democratic way? Just as examples, right? Gaming is a big arena in this field, and thinking, final footnote, of games as the modern, this German word, but that exists in English as well, because it's a German concept in philosophy, of a modern Gesamtkunstwerk, right? Gaming as an opera that includes a real orchestra playing the music for Skyrim. It includes architects and all these people. Then that's a big, big arena that we should not skip.
Okay, let me ask you a question. So, what do you think? What's the role of metal, or what's the good thing of metal that could be a good synergy with gaming? I mean, from I don't know if you can frame it from this perspective, but I think it could be very interesting to understand how you think this goes synergetically well together.
Okay, we're going to have a similar panel on Gamescom. There we will discuss the other way around. But being with the metalheads here, with fellow metalheads here, don't quote me because it sounds a bit typical metal arrogance here, but I stand behind it. There's a lot the gaming world can learn from this community. If the gaming world would look like the Wacken community and the metal community, we would have less issues there. If you look at what gaming is known for, being in between these two communities,
okay,
and it's possible because if you go at Gamescom, half of the people wear gaming metal band t-shirts.
But let me ask you, why is this the case with the Wacken community? Is it because of the mud catharsis that we have every few years all together? Or
There's a solidarity, and how do we get through this?
Well, I hope your study will show us, Tom. I hope your study will show us.
We have, I mean, to some degree, but you know, I'm pretty sure you have some ideas too, because I want to learn from you.
I would argue that metalheads are good people, but that's not a very academic statement over here.
Depends on what genre.
I mean, there have been studies, right, showing, but again, that's not the most empirical evidence out there. Yeah. And I don't know if Nico Rose counts, who's a good friend, but he might be biased a bit, being a metalhead himself.
Black metal people who are not like the friendliest.
It depends who you are.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. So let me maybe take this up. I'm not quite sure that I can take it up with the whole shovel there, but at least some aspect of it. So what we're looking at, for example, with this pain perception, is that how does listening to, you know, I mean, in general, we're interested in angry music, yeah. So of course, metal is not all angry music at all, yeah. But of course, there's, you know, you will find a range of angry music, and what's happening when you're listening to angry music after, for example, an anger induction. Yeah, so that's an experiment we also did in the lab with Lydia Schneider, and so she had the idea to have people, you know, after an anger induction, so what we all experience, you know, almost every day at some point, and you were listening to either angry music, and we had them listen to, you know, two sets of music that was very well comparable. So we did not have them listen to like classic and heavy metal or so. We had them listen to Baroque music that was either angry or happy, and the angry music, it fit to how they felt, and the happy music, it just didn't fit to their current state of mind. And we had a pain test before and a pain test afterwards, and what we found is that when you listen to the music that corresponds to your state, then your pain perception, so this would have a positive influence on your pain threshold. So if you listen to music that doesn't fit, but that like überspielt your emotion, then your pain levels would increase.
That means if you're listening to metal music and you're angry, that's the best time to get a tattoo.
Also, would that explain the wall of death? I mean, wall of death is when it never happens officially at Wacken, but it's because
officially?
It's not allowed. Just
Heaven
for,
shall
you know,
burn is here on Sunday.
Heaven shall burn would never do a wall of. It's where How do you describe that elegantly?
Well, there's like a space that is formed between two crowds of people, and then there's a go, and then they sort of close the space.
It's why I haven't a Shell Burn T-shirt that says Battle of Wacken. I mean, that's what they are talking about in this case. And these people don't seem to be in pain.
As a berserker style, I see. Yeah, maybe that's actually in a positive. I see that in positive sense, that you have a valve that you can experience through the music, and you don't have to actually exercise certain things yourself, but you perceive, like, you feel understood in a way, or you can even through this agency illusion have the experience to be in a way active through that without having to be active.
I think that's one of the core things here. That's also one of the core things, going back to Matt's input, where gaming and metal music come together. It's agency. It's you're the one designing, so to say. That's we say in the game design research. Every gamer also is a game designer, right? Because you're designing certain aspects of your interactivity, and that's agency. So I wonder if community is part of it. If you do that study, not on Wacken, but in a clinical setting out there, if we would have the same results, or is knowing that your peers are around you, impacting your pain receivement in that moment. Because community is the key to both worlds, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of the aspects that we are super interested in, we think this could be the key to explaining a lot of the effects of music. And I have to tell you folks, the first time I realized that this is going on in our nervous system, I was amazed. I was flabbergasted that this wasn't common knowledge. But we have, so in a nutshell, you can differentiate at least two types of systems that we use to control our actions. So like if we take, for example, something and we manipulate it and put it back, it's a very useful skill.
After 3 days of Wacken, it doesn't work as well anymore, but yeah.
It also
hard for robots still.
It partly differentiates us from our fellow primates, for example, but it is not necessarily a high-performance system. So we have this voluntary motor control that we have, like, we can change any time, we can modify it.
I knew that was going to happen.
It's not high-performance motor control, that's what I'm saying. And but we have a different system.
First time someone spilled coffee up here.
It's called emotional motor control that we actually share with our fellow primates. And this is a very high performance motor control system, very good for representing dynamics. And for example, when you have a real smile and the outer lower eye ring muscle activates, you can only do that during emotional motor control. You cannot do it with voluntary motor control. You can manipulate your face all you want. You cannot activate this outer lower eye ring muscle. And so these are two types of systems, and they have a largely different type of neurology. But it's very, very interesting, not only for our motor control, but also for our mental representations, because the brain always, nothing's invented twice, usually in the brain, And if you have a great system for representing dynamics for motor
transfer here, in a virtual setting, who has seen this specific band in reality before, has a different perception.
Oh yeah.
Than someone who just sees them virtual.
There's no doubt about that. For example, we know from studies that it's very interesting that you can actually learn new associations with experiences. That's in a way it's pretty clear. But let me tell you how that relates to music listening. So if you have someone listening to piano music who never played piano, and then you compare this with the same person who, you know, learn to play some piano chords and then listening to this music where maybe the same piano chords appear, you will see that when listening to the music, you will, or this person will use his brain areas that he also used for you know, actually playing the chords, so motorically. So it's a motor representation of what he did, and when he's learned how to do this and then listens to the music, this will activate. And what I think is that this is some type of focus mechanism that allows you to zoom closer to what's actually happening. And some previous study that I also did, we looked at not the hand movements, but we looked at what every one of us is using all the time. I mean, if you have a voice, that's vocalizing. And so we looked at representation of vocalization switching on when listening to music that you like. And we find that after 30 seconds or so, and that was with music you didn't know, yeah, your representations of your own vocalizations will switch on, so that, you know, as if you were vocalizing yourself. And while people were not singing along, and still they had this representation going on. And I think if it's something where you know the music already, or you know the band already, this will much more likely help you to switch on these resources.
That's so fascinating, because you see these effects of if you do virtualization of concerts, like metal concerts, for example, there are different approaches. There are bands like Pentakill that are totally virtual and made up of League of Legends characters, right? That's a different story. But if you look at, I do a Fortnite or whatever game-based proto-metaverse stage for a band, then some people love it and they tell you in surveys and so on that they have this very similar experience to being out there in the mud listening to it, while you have people who do not seem to be affected the same way. And now I don't want this to turn into a draft for you know, a new research project, but maybe having seen them live, due to that argumentation and reason, makes that different, explains it.
But you know, that's why earlier I said maybe it's partly because of the mud catharsis that we have, that's every few years. So I'm actually, you know, while it's pretty tough this year, I have to say, compared to last year where it was happy sunshine metal concerts all the time.
Rain or shine.
But Tom wasn't here 2015, so...
I heard it's legendary 2015, but you know, at least everyone got parked their stuff beforehand, I heard. So it was still pretty tough. So we were here at the beginning, and we got the whole rain down.
That's interesting, because Tom has been doing anthropological research in very weird places on worldwide, right? That's not more complicated here than when you have been somewhere in the jungle, I guess.
At least you're not, you know, at least you're not like ill from the stomach all the time. So that's
what you eat. Yeah.
Not yet.
No,
Greetings go also to the catering.
I mean, I realized that this is totally off topic now, I have to say, but you know, like the Inuits, like they know like 20 different qualities of snow, and now I know at least 20 different qualities of mud, that's for sure.
Okay, so maybe we can wrap this up, and I'd like to know, because you said the communities and are so similar for gaming in Wacken, where do you see potential in the future? Because you had a gaming area in the past. Is there something going to happen in the future? Do we see that we bring the communities more together so new things can arise?
Yeah, I must say before that, I have this business card that says Wacken Ambassador. Nobody really knows what that means. It does not mean that I can make any announcements, so this is just Manu talking here. But considering that there is this potential, let me put it this way, I would be highly confused if we would not see new approaches. And I'm very honest with you, there has been this collaboration, which may be, again, that's me talking, maybe, and I know Matt agrees, because we talked about that, was focusing too much on metal music and festival meets esport, like in the competitive interpretation of gaming. Maybe that has not been the best way of connecting the dots. Maybe it's more about casual gaming. So if something new comes up, I would hope it goes more into Mario Kart racing than competitive League of Legends gaming. But I would also love to see a Wacken team out there in all these different games. I'm not quite there yet in convincing everybody that that would be cool, but why not, make a Wacken band, not a Wacken band, make a Wacken team in different games out of the Wacken community, and then let's make it happen. Yeah, that's my personal hope that this happens one day.
Sounds like a plan.
That's very helpful. Yeah, send emails to Holger and Thomas. Tell them we would love to see that.
And Tom, just again, maybe you can tell the audience if they want to do crazy surveys with you and try out how music influences them. Where can they find you?
So we're with a Wacken Foundation in one of these tents, in one of the big tents where it's called Heavy Metal Army, where they
Full Metal Army.
Full Metal Army.
Just look for the Max Planck Institute banner that doesn't look like it belongs to the Wacken at all.
And we have a little sign that we put up on the floor saying pain test for science, and you can participate there if you're interested.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you guys for joining our panel. I hope you could learn some interesting things and have fun the next few days. Thank you.